And welcome back to Mimas with me, 54 Bear, doing a brutal start, which, to be honest, is no longer brutal. We have accomplished quite a few things. We have upgraded printers, we have a bunch of different crops thanks to a recent seed trader, we have our water generation, we have our fuel generation, and our oxygen reclaiming thingy. We have a couple of big batteries, we have lots of small ones, and we have a working Stirling engine. We even have a cooling system that has been ever so slightly funkified as far as the piping goes. No real reason for it to look like that other than, well, there's no reason for it at all, to be honest. I just wanted to do it that way. Right, switch, don't need. What we have at the moment is this method here. I pull this lever, it turns the Stirling on, flip the thing, it turns it off. And of course I have to run all the way around here to check that fan to see whether it works or not. What we are going to do is automate it. And as people who have watched any of my earlier series or recordings may have surmised, we will use a Schmitt trigger. What is a Schmitt trigger? It's something that was developed by Mr. Schmitt, obviously, and it triggers him every time you mention it. Yeah, it's basically a way of controlling things on or off. There's no proportional type control or anything with it. And yeah, apologies for the creaking sound, but one of my tanks up there is on the full side. I'm not adding any more to it at the moment, but it's already past the creaking limit. So, yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, Schmitt trigger. It's used to turn stuff on or off. It's not used for any kind of proportional control, so we wouldn't use it that way. So what we're going to start with is a batch reader. Now, did I go past it? No, I didn't. Why a batch reader? Well, we have multiple batteries, and it's quite conceivable I may want to add more batteries to that pile. I don't have the advanced furnace yet, so I can't do any of the advanced alloys. So once we know what the temperature is, we want to compare it. So we want a compare unit. What do we compare it to? That is a very good question. We compare it with a select unit, and this is where people get a little bit bent out of shape by this one. Now I'm going to give it a little bit more space here because I'm going to have to put in a couple of memory chips. In fact, I should give it a lot more space. Maybe I should put the memory chips in first. One there, and then this can go in the middle. So yeah, doing it this way, it does take a fair bit of space. Yeah, I'm going to want a batch writer as well. Right, let's get some of these things wired in. And it would help if I had my wire cutters. Right, so, oh, that was a mistake. I'm going to do it like that. Now I'm going to see if I can do it in a way where pretty much everything is connected just to what it needs to be connected to, rather than have everything connected to everything. Gets a little bit funky because I think it's either the compare unit or the select unit, or maybe even both of them, do require this bottom one to be connected as well. Not really certain. Right, now where do I want my batch writer to be? Well, it's going to need power, but there again it can get that from the yellow side. No, I'll just put it there, I think. Right, don't need any more chips. Right, so that will have power. It won't see what it needs to see just yet. I think I need to connect that one. Not that one. I think this one needs to be connected. Which I can do. Just like that, I guess. Okay, right, let's get this thing programmed. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Drag this over here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the memory memory variables. So I'm going to set this to 5%, which is 0.05. And I'm going to set this one to, for the moment, whoops, not 70, 7%, because I want to be able to test this. Okay. So we want to read the batteries. So station battery, method always average when you're dealing with multiples like this. In this case, I don't want to read the charge, I want to read the ratio. Ratio returns a number between 0 and 1. 1 is 100%, 0 is flat. At the moment, we're at 38 point something %. So the compare unit will take the batch reader and it is going to compare it to the select unit. And it, whoops. And it can't see it. Wonder if that's because it needs to be connected at the bottom. Right, so yeah, select unit, logic select. Oh, there we go. Logic select.
Hydration critical.
Right, so that works. Let's try taking this one off. Yeah, it still works. Yeah, so the compare unit is obviously
Power low.
yeah, it doesn't need this bottom one connected, whereas this one does. Not really certain why that is. Okay, so we've got our batch reader reading the ratio, and we're looking to see whether this is not equals, we want less. Turn it off. Doesn't really matter in this particular case, but as a general rule, when you're changing these screws, always turn it off. Because if you're dealing with something, oh, that's the wrong chip. Yeah, if you're dealing with something that writes out a value, let's do batch writer. There we go. So if you leave it turned on and you go through selecting things, you may end up inadvertently writing something out that you don't want to. and it could be game breaking. Well, not game breaking, but it could ruin your entire day. So, yeah, as a general rule, when you're tweaking these things, turn them off, even if it's something that doesn't write anything. Right, so this reads the batch reader to see if it's less than whatever the logic select is returning. And this is where we get into the funky bit. So this is our minimum value, this is our maximum value. So we're working between 5 and 7%. This will return this value, or it will use this value if whatever it's looking at here, which will be the compare unit, returns a 0 or a 1. So we want this to look at the compare unit, logic compare. This can only see that. This can only see that. Turn that on. So at the moment it's returning 0.5, which is what we'd expect, because the battery charge at the moment is 32%. We don't want it, or the way I've got it set is the Stirling we don't want to turn on until the battery charge average is 5% or less. So that is working as it should. So the batch writer is going to use this compare unit. This compare unit returns a 0 or a 1, which is what the batch writer needs. So the compare unit, logic compare, output type will be the Stirling engines, and it'll be on. So this will be a 0. And that's it. That is a working Schmitt trigger. Not the most efficient layout, but I wanted to do it this way so that you don't have a massive amount of things to select from these, and it makes it a little bit easier to consider what this select unit is actually doing. It is a little bit confusing with it needing this bottom output connected, whereas the compare unit doesn't. Yeah, I don't know whether the devs will ever rationalize that, because really this only needs 3 connections. Well, actually it needs 4, I guess. 1 for power, 1 for one input, 1 for another, and 1 to see what it's actually reading. So my guess is that this is the one that, even though it's labelled as output, this is the one that needs to see the compare unit. Right, so let's give it a proper test. So right now we're at 30%, so we've got a long way to wait until this gets down to 5. So let's change this. We'll turn this off for the moment. That's 29, so we'll set this to 28, and we'll set the maximum to 0.3, which will be 30%. Right, so as soon as this hits, or maybe I should have set it at 29. What did I set it at? 28. Yeah, so as soon as the battery charge hits 28%, this will then return a true. When this, a 1, which will then cause this one, instead of looking at this, it will look at this. So all subsequent compares will be comparing it to the higher number. Right, just half a point to go. And there we go. Hits 28. Stirling engine comes on. This is now returning a 1, so this is looking at the higher value. 0.03. And as soon as it hits 3, it turns off. And this is now returning a 0, and this is now pointing at this value. So that is the essence of a Schmitt trigger. And yeah, there's really nothing else to cover on this. Now, I did have this manual switch. I don't need it anymore, so I'll turn it off. These chips, the powered ones, only use 10 watts. So combined, this is a 40 watt power usage or power cost. A IC housing, I think, is 50 watts, if my memory is correct. So you can actually run 5 of these chips for the same power usage as you can one IC code. The advantage of using IC code is if you wanted to have some complex, like if you wanted to have another Schmitt trigger that dealt with the temperature, you would need all of this again to just to deal with the temperature to turn on a bunch of valves or vents or whatever. Whereas if you've got an IC chip, you could add that all to it without any problem. So, but it, for a small limited function like this, where in reality I'm not going to want to do anything with this. This is a passive cooling system. There are no vents on it at all, other than this one down here to fill it up. And to be honest, that could come off because it's not being used for anything. All right, so we must have hit the 28% again. I should actually change this now while I think about it. Otherwise, I'll walk outside and I will forget. So I only want it to come on when it hits, say, 10%. And I want it to go off when it hits, say, 95. So this circuit as it stands right now will keep the batteries between 5, was it 5? Did I do it or 10? Yeah, between 10 and 95% without any action from me, as long as this circuit has power. I mean, that's one of the reasons why there's an APC there. To be honest, I should put a big battery in it. And all this supplies is this stuff. So it's only this 40 watts. So it should be okay. And this APC is directly fed from the batteries. So it'll be one of the last things to run out of power. Anyway, I'm going to go make some more Stirlings and put them in here. I'm going to make at least one more, maybe 2. If you have any questions, comments, observations, complaints, dad jokes, anything at all, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I will do my level best to get back to you. In the meantime, thanks for watching, like and subscribe, all that stuff, good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. 54 Bear out.